I reckon even if no one turned up tonight, we could just go hard for like 45 minutes, cover off on a whole heap of stuff about what's going to be valuable for people, even if there's no questions. But I find it hard to believe that we would have absolutely no questions.
So, ladies and gents, as Dan was just saying like a couple of seconds before we came on air, it's like getting the old band to get back together. You and I started this thing well over a year ago, just you and I on the screen here drawing off. And now we brought Sammy Wins join us, first cab off the rank, my dear. I can't wait to see your property when it's finished real soon. And then
try and just hold in his excitement there. Mate.
I know, right? It's so
Sammy
good.
You can tell he's almost like wetting himself just a tiny little bit with excitement. I can only imagine how pumped you must be, Sammy, as well.
For sure. You know, you've got blokes, people like Hugh and Kelly who join us as well. They're like 6 months behind you guys because they're just starting their build. So they'll be on here, bloody, you know, like they'll be like Sammy, like, how fucking awesome does this house look when they're doing the drive-by?
Mikey G, hello, champs. We are double down on the champs. It's a good thing I'm a civilian, mate, and I don't take it to heart when I get champed these days.
Plural,
so
champs, plural.
Champs, plurals. It's a wonderful thing to have. Mate, like you were just talking about Sammy there and how they're going through their owner-occupier experience, right? I actually was out on the road today and I had the wonderful opportunity to catch up with one of our clients who was the very first client that we had that has been able to get hold of Home Builder Grant from that perspective, right?
Yep.
And so we went out there today. We're out on the ground with a quick little visit. She's a couple of days after moving into her property, absolutely loving it. She's actually got a cute little, she fosters one of the RAF working dogs there. So over the first few months of their life, they get to go out and be rehomed. So we got to play with the puppy as well, right? But we were reminiscing about how it all came to be at the beginning of Home Builder Grant. And it was like, she came to us and she's like, hey, I'm not quite there from a savings perspective, but what can we do? And it was right at the depths of COVID and no one really knew what was going on. So it must have been pretty much like 12 or 13 months ago, right? Almost to the day.
Yep.
And what has ended up happening is like, this is how good Home Builder Grant was in the COVID period of time, right? Because she was an owner-occupier, she was able to sneak into some of the bank policies that said you can buy a house with a 5% deposit. So she turned up with like $25,000 in the bank, and that was all the deposit that she needed. But oh, by the way, she went in and she goes, "Can I have my H-Plus, please? 17 grand. Let's call it 11 grand after tax in her back pocket.
Yep.
First homeowners grant, $15,000 in the pocket. Oh, and by the way, can I please have my Home Builder Grant too? Another 25 grand in the pocket." So this is a great young lady who turns up with $25,000, buys a house with it, and walks away with 50 grand in the back pocket, ready to go for the next one. I mean,
so good.
It's phenomenal, the level of sort of support that the government put out through that period of time. And it was just like, it's going to change the life of an entire generation from a wealth creation perspective.
And you know what I'm going to bang our own drum here. What is a massive contributor? And I'm going to show everyone tonight something we've never shown you before. No, I'm not going to stand up and show you what I do or don't have on underneath the screen here, like a newsreader. I'm going to show you a very simple but relevant example of the level of planning, like military style line of operation planning that we do, which I know significantly contributed to not just the education and then the awareness, but also the confidence for that young Air Force lady to go and buy her own home and do all those things, Dan, that you just explained. So, you know, it just becomes, I don't know, it's hard for me to say it's a no-brainer that no one should go and buy a $500,000 fucking anything without sitting down and planning it out properly. You can't buy too many $500,000 anythings. Normally it's a house or a car. Like, I don't think there's $500,000 handbags. Certainly not in my world, they're not. And now
you can absolutely spend $500,000 on a boat, mate, every day of the week.
Boat, of course. Fuck, we just went to the boat show on the weekend. But, you know, so, you know, and again, I would not fucking go and spend $500,000 on anything unless I'd actually not overanalyzed, but actually planned it out properly and war gamed the what ifs and put an actual sequence of events in place, especially when there's government grants and there's timelines and there's stipulations and there's proof that needs to take place, mate. So kudos to you and the rest of your team, Dan, that you were able to do that with that, you know, young lady. And, you know, we've got a massive fan for life. Most importantly, we've helped another, you know, defense member squeeze every dollar that they're actually entitled to. And the future self's going to fucking love him for it, knowing full well that it's not her forever home that she built. It's just a home that she's now living in her current posting location.
Absolutely.
So good.
Yeah. And I mean, backing up on what you're talking about getting a team of experts that understand what they're doing in, like you went down to the boat show on the weekend, right?
I did.
I can almost, you tell me, would you go out there and buy a $200,000 boat even from the boat show without speaking to someone about it first?
Definitely not.
Like, and at the end of the day, you don't go out there and buy $200,000 boats every day. So you go and find an expert who knows what they're actually talking about when it comes to boating. And you're like, hey man, I want to get your opinion and an understanding of what's actually going on in this. Can you help me out and have a discussion at least about what I'm trying to achieve? And if they're a fucking expert in the field, mate, they're going to talk to you about shit that you don't even understand, but you know is important to you.
Yeah, 100%, 100%. All right, let's just press pause on there for a second. Good start to the session, mate. Like it's almost like you and I used to bounce off each other so much, but then when we've got Dane with us and we've got Tammy with us as well, it's so much easier to hold a conversation because we've got double the amount of input. But now it's just you and I. So let's let's really focus on the superstars that we have with us tonight. Kelly Marie's in the house. Paul Cooney's in the house. Margie Grunsell, Kent Herman, Jane Kelly. Of course, you're in the house because you were at that house today. Jai Simmons, Sammy Wynn, and Sally Sullivan. Yeah. Tell us about Paul Cooney, because I know you've just connected with him recently, and now he's like, fellas, long-time listener, first-time caller, twice in one day. And question,
mate.
You prefer ADF tenants? Please discuss.
Yeah,
Great question.
Paul and I had a ripper chat this afternoon. He self-disclosed that he was a bit of a creeper. We had the discussion. I was like, he goes, is that something that's on your website, Dan? And I'm like, yeah, it would be on our website. He goes, don't worry, I've read it, I've watched it, I know who you are. So, Paul, it's great to see you here, buddy. I know I was just messaging you before we jumped on there, and you've got a wealth of experience in the ADF as well, mate. So I suppose you're obviously sitting there going, hey, when we've got tenants living in these properties, what do you look for? So RT, I'll give it to you first, mate. Question: do you prefer ADF tenants? Discuss.
Sure. The first thing one of my CEOs on SOTG taught me something many, many years ago. It was in 2009. It was when I met Damo, who's now works with Axon. He said, Robbie, when someone asks you a question, there's only 3 answers you should give them up front. It's yes, no, or I don't know. Right? So before I discuss, the answer is yes. I do prefer ADF client tenants. Here's the reason. But there's a couple of stipulations that needs to go into that. For one of my properties down in Melbourne, it's not within fucking cooey of a Defence Force base. So guess what? I don't get the option to have a Defence Force member in my fucking house. So if they're buying the right property in the right location that suits your circumstances, which is going to serve the purpose from a long-term perspective, happens to be near a military base, of course it's like a fucking no-brainer that you have someone who's been selected and trained and they understand the lease that they sign as a fucking legal document that they've got between you as the landlord and them as the tenant. If they break shit, they're going to be responsible for it. I know you said bust their balls then, but I didn't. And at the end of the day, like it's when I was a senior NCO back in the day, even when I was a young captain and certainly when I was a major, although when it's in a SOCOM unit, it didn't really happen very many times. If someone was being a dickhead in the civilian space, all they needed to do was fucking ring the brigade base and go, hey, I've been speaking to fucking Private Jono. He's just broken the lease, or he's fucking busted a window, or he's bashing his missus, or he's fucking had a car accident, and the MPs go out there straight away. So I guess there's an extra level of accountability and awareness that people are defence members. So in an extreme case, if someone was trashing your investment property and they were a defence member, you're probably going to, you or the MPs or someone's going to know about it sooner rather than later. And generally, Defence Force members are on reasonable pay. You got a heartbeat, you put a fucking uniform on, you get paid every fortnight. Not like that in the real world. Ask the 10 veterans that work in Axon, even though they get paid every fortnight. But they actually have to turn up and perform for it, not just have a heartbeat. So, long-time listener, first-time answerer for me, Paul. That's my response, mate.
Yeah, it's good. I suppose the last thing you spoke about there, RT, was really talking about the stability of the income that a defence member has coming in. So, I suppose, Paul, I think I like the idea of ADF tenants because they come from my background and culture that I understand. So it's like you are me effectively because I used to be a defense member and I still you don't ever yes, you take your uniform off, but you can't really get rid of the personas and all the bits that the military breeds into you from that perspective. So I'd probably like defense clients equally as much because of that stability of income as much as I just have a preference towards them because of all those other things that Robbie spoke about from a veteran community perspective. Yep. But at the end of the day, mate, I equally like doctors and nurses and government employees. And you go through the list, mate, and you tell me all the people that are pretty much guaranteed to be able to earn an income. I'm happy to have them living in my property as well. And I've had defense members living in my properties and I've had non-defense members living in my property. At the end of the day, it's more about the stability of income and making sure that sucker is looking after itself as time goes on. Quick caveat to that though, when I start talking about ADF tenants, I'm definitely not talking about DHA managed properties to find ADF tenants. What I'm talking about there is I've got a separate rental management agency that literally just do their job and go and find me tenants, and I've got those properties made, and I don't need DHA's rental guarantees, for example, at 16% to fucking pay for it. I'm happy to pay my 5-6% to my rental management agency, and some of those properties, mate, that have had defense members in there, have had civvies in there, get the rent paid every single week. I think one of them I've had for about 5 years now, and I've literally had a grand total of 2 days where the property hasn't been occupied earning me rent. So that's a pretty good strike rate from that perspective.
I remember finding you that property when you were my client. I remember finding you that property when you were my client, mate, and you still got it.
Was indeed. That sucker's just going to sit there and keep going up in value and keep pay the bills for me.
Do not sell that.
It is what it is. So my answer is yes, I like ADF tenants, I should say. No, I don't necessarily need DHA to find them for me.
Yeah. Totally. Yeah, that's another whole sort of little rabbit hole thing there. Nicole Otto's placed in there. Hello, Nick. Good to see you again, buddy. Paul, I've an ADF tenant and he's great so far. Natina, who's a property manager, has said they also keep their houses much, much cleaner and in order. I love the ADF tenants in the ones that I manage. And then certainly Jane, who's our amazing build support manager, Jane's saying there that, certainly, I mean, we, talking like I'm still in, you as a current member, you need to have your defense force clause in the lease because if service need says you need to fucking deploy somewhere at a moment's notice, you need to be able to, pull that lever and get out and break your lease sooner rather than later. So, certainly the property managers in those areas that are around defense bases should be aware that clause still needs to be in there to sort of protect yourself.
And I mean, it's one of those things. We do talk about the break lease clause as well, but I've lived in properties without having that clause in place. And if I ever needed to move, there's a very simple way to overcome people. It's communication. You ring up your rental manager and you say, hey, I've only just found out, but I'm about to get deployed in 1, 2, 3, 6 months, whatever it is. Can we start working on a plan so that we can get a new tenant into this property? I'm happy to make my house available on weekends, on Wednesday afternoons, on Tuesdays, whatever the fucking dates are. And you start assisting your rental manager to be able to find that new tenant for the property. Because even then, if you have to break the lease, at least you're assisting people to be able to find new tenants for that property and being a really good tenant from that perspective.
Yeah, 100%. And Jane, as you're putting in there now, communication, absolutely. But the final sentence of your post was, luckily the locations we build in never have any trouble finding a new tenant. One of the things that I'm going to share with everyone real soon, the things that I've been focusing on really, Dan, for the whole month, is coaching a lot of the clients that I coached a year ago. And you've got your own clients and your own team, and Dane's growing his own amazing, team of clients there as well, soon to be called members. About you've got $500 a week for your property right now, and you might have had a lease signed 4 months ago. As we can see on realestate.com, the going rate is now $540 a week, sometimes $560 a week. So in 12 months, so in 8 months' time, 4 months leave, 8 months to go within the 12 months. I think that's still correct, unless 8 + 4 has changed inside school.
Your maths from school is still okay.
Still accurate, thank you. It's been a fucking while, nearly 32 years. That you're gonna write a letter, so your property manager is gonna notify your tenants with say 8 weeks to go to say, hey buddy, that that 500 bloody bucks a week you're paying right now is going to be 570. And if you don't want to pay it, you're fucking leaving.
I've just
Sorry,
had an interruption. Look at this little
Sorry,
fella,
Margaret. I apologise. I just had to say that really, really naughty F word.
Young James has come to visit, mate. He said, I can't sleep yet, Dad. Can I come and hang out on the internet? Here's Mum.
James and Margaret. Because here's the thing, but they're like, oh, but I don't want to lose my tenant. I'm like, bro, if there's people willing to pay 570 bucks a week, too bad. You're people that are paying 500 bucks a week. If they can't pay it, you're not the housing commission. You're not going to have any dramas finding a new tenant. So it's a real mindset thing as far as that goes. And you're not there to do favors for anyone else. You're providing them a favor by having a roof over their head. I don't know, Natina's online right now. The demand for housing to buy a house or rent a house in these amazing master plan communities across Melbourne, Victoria, and Queensland were the three main areas that we've been focusing on for the last couple of years. I've never seen it higher. It's never been harder to find a rental property. It's never been harder to buy a property, and therefore the demand and the prices are going through the roof.
Yeah. So, I always think about it. I always think when people say to me, it's like, I'm not, do I really like my tenant? I want to do him a favor. I'm like, let's put the shoe on the other foot. If the market had gone down and all of a sudden the market says, okay, because there's plenty of rental markets on the property, whatever it is, right? Rental properties on the market. Let's say that the industry or the region now has $10 below their rent as the new standard. Do you think that your tenant would turn around and go, hi, Mr. Landlord, can I please continue to pay you $10 over the market value?
And they won't be saying, oh, my landlord's a good person, I really want to look after them. They'll be like, let's fucking squeeze everything we can from this, from this squeezer. Yeah. So, yeah, it's very, very, can't be one way there. So, no, anyway, little random tangent. But, certainly when there is an opportunity based on proper ethical comparative market analysis from your property manager that you should up the rent, guess what? You communicate that to the tenants, and if they can't pay it, I'm sorry, hun, fucking pay you $2,000 to go bloody get a removal, and I'll get someone else to move in there that can pay fair and reasonable market rent.
Yeah. Speaking about gentlemen who had to go and pay for a removal, Dane Roach, here he is. Bloody look, mate,
you're supposed to be unpacking boxes, bro. Turn us off. Take a break.
You know what he's probably done? He's gone, hey, Jess, I know we're unpacking, honey, but I need some entertainment. Don't worry about this new house that we've just moved into that we love in an amazing location. Let's put the boys from Axon on tonight and see what they've got to say for themselves.
Yeah, 100%. And Dane, in a public sense, mate, when we're talking about people that have had enormously smart and consistent money habits over a long period of time and done very well with your investment choices in the share market, stock market, property, et cetera, financial planning background, bro, you just fucking moved into your forever home. You've said to Dan and I in our little coaches lounge, when you're leaving there, it'll be in a fucking box. So, mate, it's, there's a lot to celebrate. There's a lot to feel amazing about. I can't fucking wait to crack a beer with you in the bloody in the front porch when the time comes, mate. But you should feel, extremely proud of yourself that you've been able to buy a property a year ago, sell that one, and synchronize it when buying a new one. Like, there's been a lot of churn and a lot of sort of stuff and a lot of effort you've had to put into it, mate. So you're getting to that point where most other people are only trying to get to, mate. So yeah, I'm really, really happy for you.
Yeah, absolutely. Noah, can you please bring up, I think there was Gregory, it was Gregory maybe from before. Can you please bring up his question too, buddy? Ladies and gents, keep bringing those questions in too, because as I often tell people, just because you're sitting there in the background and you're like, ooh, I can reach out to Dan on the back channel and he'll be able to answer my question. What you're doing is you're taking away an opportunity from another person who's probably sitting there going, oh, maybe I need to know the answer to this question. So it's a question that they don't even know that they have at this point in time. So if you're creeping in the background like Paul has previously, or you're someone who we haven't yet spoken to, because I know I can see there's 29 people online and there's probably only about 7 people that are asking me questions or commenting at the moment. So there's 22 of you out there right now that probably have questions. You're a little bit shy to ask. This is a safe space. Go ahead and pop your question in the chat there. Let's go for Gregory here, please, mate.
I'm the biggest village idiot on this whole call, so nothing you ask us is going to be seen as like that. You know what, Greg, I'll read out the question in a second. I've been in, I saw it on Facebook today. 8 years ago to the day, so many of you know already, when I got out of the military in sort of April, May 2013, I went and did a week's worth of behind the scenes on the job training in another property investment firm. And I got to very, very graciously and gratefully work there for 4 years. It was 8 years ago today that I was watching the first session of that behind the scenes training, like you did, Dan, 3 years ago when you come and did your on the job training with me. So it's a very very symbiotic day, symbolizing day today for me. And the reason why I say that is that I've been in the industry now for 8 years, and I've had countless people, Gregory. I don't know you well enough yet to shorten it, Gregory George.
I don't know where you're going with this.
Countless people that joined in the 90s, like I did, 1990 to be exact for me. Yes, I'm an old bastard. Countless people reach out to me and go, "Hey, Robbie, you and I did 10 years together back in the day. I got out fucking in, the early 2000s. Surely I'm still bloody entitled to something. Surely, didn't I fucking see you here somewhere that there's an old housing scheme? I'm at that stage now where I want to be able to buy my own home." I'm like, "No, bro, that's gone ages and ages ago." So, okay, Baz Bear.
You're getting Baz Bear for the rest of the night.
Baz Bear. So I guess. So I'll now read out the question, because this is not the first time, Dan, that you and I have had, an old school sort of defence member reach out to us. So on TPI, Medcat 2006, I've never received anything from defence towards a house. Is there anything I can receive? I've looked up stamp duty on a house in New South Wales. Yes, Dan, I'll get you to talk about that. But I think we don't get anything. What should I do? So, yeah, it's one of those things. There's one defence housing entitlement that a veteran can get hold of. It used to be within 2 years of separating. It's now been extended to within 5 years of separating. And that's your DOHAS loan. And even then, there's different categories based on how many years service you did, et cetera, et cetera. And now without us trying to delve into people's circumstances too much, especially from a med discharge perspective, there has been times whereby there's a couple of one-liners on one's med discharge conditions whereby, they might be sort of extended a tier 2 DOHAS credit for, extended periods, for instance. So it's very humanised and personalised as far as that goes.
Yeah.
But generally, once you leave the sort of Defence Force, there's not too much you can get your hands on, mate, except for the general stamp duty stuff that you're talking about there. That's not my state of the market, Dan.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think what you're speaking about there, RT, is in short, it's hard to say exactly what you're entitled to, Baz Bear, without actually going back to DVA and asking the question. They're the ones that will be able to say to you, because they're ladies and gents, if you didn't realize, DVA administered the DOHAS process. The DOHAS, the prelude to DOHAS, because DOHAS came in 2008. So obviously you're prior to DOHAS from that perspective, Baz Bear. So there's previous schemes before that, which do the sort of similar things as well. But DVA were the administrators of that as well. So we just need to be able to go back to DVA, ask the question if you want that clarity as well, mate, of exactly what you might have coming your way. From a stamp duty perspective on a house in New South Wales, obviously there's all the stuff that comes your way from being potentially a first home buyer. I'm making a huge assumption that that's the case, mate, purely based on the what should I do bit. And I suppose the biggest thing about the what should I do bit is I can give you the hot tip. The answer is not to do nothing. You have to do something, mate. Whether you get free shit from the Defence Force or not, you don't have an option. You need to do something, or else you'll keep getting the same thing that you've got for the last bloody 15 years since you got out of the military. And that might be amazing, but if you're here talking to us, I get the impression that you probably want to do something differently. And if you're at that point in time, you need to have a look at what your options are, reach out to some people in the know, all that sort of stuff in order to make sure that you are getting across everything that you potentially are entitled for. Understand how that might be able to be used in the best ways and means to support your individual circumstances and be able to help you out, mate, to be able to go and get those things done to achieve your goals in the long term as well. So in short, man, what should I do is find a group of people that you think you could know, like, and trust from your same background, culture, and understand where you've been and where you're going at this point in time. Reach out to them, ask them for help, and then be able to be open and willing to hear some guidance and support from that perspective.
And put a plan together so you know the direction that you're heading in. You know, because the obvious answer might not just be, all right, fuck, I need to do something in the housing market. I better put a roof over my head. I don't want to do rent money's dead money. Better go buy my own house. And you throw yourself in the 30-year mortgage trap.
Yeah.
So it's not generally, it might not be the exact, sort of best outcome for you. And it just totally depends on your circumstances.
Absolutely. Hey, can we bring up Matt Riley's comment here? Because it's interesting. Normally I agree with Matt's stuff, but.
Yeah. Matt, and first of all, Matt, can I just say, Dan, while you're gathering your thoughts, we really appreciate your inputs to these sort of sessions that, you come on every couple of weeks. So thanks, mate.
So I understand where you're coming from, Matt, when you say, I'm not looking for a rental cash flow at the moment. I'm only after capital growth, right? Whilst that might be the case for you, if you are like a large portion of people in an individual area, you're actually shooting yourself in the foot from a capital growth perspective. And I'm going to explain why now. If you have a whole lot of people that are willing to go out there and spend like $450 a week on rent, right? All of a sudden, if those rents are now up at $500 a week, there's going to be a portion of that demographic who now go, hey, rather than paying $500 a week rent, I'm now actually able to go and buy my own house for an equivalent amount of money potentially. And they go, well, I'm going to stop renting and I'm going to go and buy that house. And I'm going to go and buy that house. And you get enough people when the rent goes up that'll go, it's now affordable for me to go and buy my house in that area. And what you're doing is you're creating more demand for that area. And you'll generally notice this, right, in the market. You'll see prices go up and then you'll see rents follow them. And then you'll see prices go up and you'll see rents follow them and so on and so forth. Because from a pure economics perspective, you're always playing on the margins. If at the end of the day, it's way more expensive for you to be able to buy your house in that area, then more people are going to want to rent in that area. And it's the same opposite sides. So realistically, if you're saying, hey, I'm not willing to work inside the market with rental perspectives, then you need to be able to just accept the fact that if you and the majority of people in that area are doing the same thing, you're actually stagnating capital growth, if I'm perfectly honest about it. This is macroeconomics. It's what you need to consider when you're doing that type of thing. When you're working in an area, demand is demand is demand. People are going to be demanding to live there from a rent perspective, or they're going to be demanding to live there as well. The same drivers are there, but you need to consider the fact that if you're wanting to have a lot of properties there with a lower rental yield, then at the end of the day, you're going to have a handbrake on capital growth.
Yep, agree with all that. Can I add something to it, please?
Sure.
Of
course, mate, of course.
He's like, it's your show. Our show, the show, Axon show. The other thing, Matt, is that, generally if it's $20 or $30 a week, you'd be like, oh, fuck, whatever, I'll leave it there. But if you've got a tenant in there for $500 and the market now says it's $570, $580, that's a different conversation. Because here's the thing, mate, if you're in your accumulation mode, why wouldn't you want to be demonstrating to the banks that you're getting that extra money involved so you can then safely borrow the right amount of money to keep growing your portfolio? Because imagine if you had two of those properties that were both $50 a week underneath the market rent. There's $5,200 a year that you don't have coming in to your surplus income, which could give you the right amount of borrowing to go buy another property. And then you're not missing out on two lots of $500 or $50 a week. Then you're missing out on another $450,000 asset. And that can make a massive difference to your future. So that's the way I look at it. And I'm all cool for you're right. You don't need an extra 20 or $30 in your pocket if your properties are positively geared. They're the ultimate self-licking ice creams. But ultimately, when you want to go for your next property, you want to be able to have the right amount of money that you're entitled to in your portfolio so the broker can put the deal together for you and get you the next property. That's the way I look at it anyway, as well as that economic stuff that Dan went through.
Don't get me wrong, Matt. At the end of the day, yes, it's absolutely your decision. No one's saying that it's not. It's just from a mindset perspective. I suppose we kind of look at it in a different perspective.
Yeah, and it's everyone is listening and viewing this through their own individual prisms, lens, whatever you want to call it. Increase the rent, but I think about the outgoing cost with losing a tenant and try and balance it out. I'm definitely not a saint and give it away for free 100%. Well, that's
Good man. Okay, good.
If you're in an area and the demand is not super high and you think you're going to be without a tenant for a month, that's a different conversation. But we're talking about current market conditions whereby there's fucking 20 people lined up to pay $570, not $500 a week rent for the property. So it's a very, again, personalized thing there. Nicky Otto, I am going to share something with you guys real soon, but I want to sort of just give you guys enough love here. Well, we got, more than 25 people listening. So not a question, just a comment. Listen to Deb on the podcast this afternoon. So thank you, Nick, for reminding us. Those that haven't had a chance yet to jump on our Axons Unleashed season 2. I never fucking get that right. So I said version 2 or something the other day as well. Season 2. Deb is now on there, and we've released it basically overnight. Was mentioned that Axon need people, businesses that trust will look after their clients. This is the exact reason why I dumped another company before I heard of Axon. Their mortgage broker never called me back. It's Nick, first of all, we love having you as one of our members, clients. We love and we're proud and honoured to be on your team. I know that sort of Dan, you and Dan have got a very close relationship there, and you guys are continuing to work on your portfolio. We're not one of those firms that see it as a transaction. We're building a community, and as I know that we're building a family, and everyone sort of feels the love, and we don't have 20 or 30 people listening to us every single Wednesday night for over a year for free. It doesn't cost us anything except for our time. We get on here and jaw off, and we're just ourselves, and I know you guys love it. It's the thing that I've been really, really focusing on, just to allow Dan to take, ultimate control over what's going on with the coaches and the property specialist stuff. Dane's bubbling up and being his own sort of, awesome coach there and taking on the lion's share of all those brand new clients, just like I did 4 years ago, just like you did 3 years ago, Dan. So, we're growing that capability. But what I've been doing now is, and I've got another client that I'm going to speak to directly after this. So I'm pointing to my second screen here because I'm about to share it in a second, is that we've been reaching out to all those clients that bought a property with us 12 or 18 months ago. And we're now basically as part of our ongoing coaching and mentoring series. So we do obviously a hot wash at the end of the build. 6 months later, we give them a quick phone call to go, hey, how's everything going? 12 months later, 12, 13, 14, 15 months later, depending on one's availability, we get together and basically revisit the plan. It's not about buying another property straight away, because certainly in all of the master plan communities right now, you can take a block of land off the market now-ish, but you won't have to worry about getting your finance approved until the end of the year, sometimes into August next year, because they can't make the land fast enough, such as the demand. But there's a couple of little nuances that sort of go into it. It might be my little segue to share my screen in a second. There's a couple of little nuances that go into it, especially when buying a property here in Queensland, is that there's a couple of little, get out of jail free cards, which make it risk free for you to be able to do that, as opposed to buying a property down in sort of New South Wales or Victoria. So again, one of my normal little Robbie rants that go off on a tangent, but I'll swing it back around, Nick. It's something that we pride ourselves on immensely, is that it's not a sterile transaction. Once you get accepted into our coaching session, because you can't buy your way in, we choose who we work with. We want to give you all of us until you say, I've had enough. And no one ever says that anyway, right? That's why we've got clients coming back around now buying their third and fourth properties with us. So this did work during the rehearsal earlier today, like a minute before we got on. Hopefully it still works now that I'm live with you guys. Let me go ahead and share my screen. Noah, if you can just do that executive stuff on the back channel there, please. Is that working?
Look at that.
Awesome. Right. So at the end of this, I'm just about to show you right now and give those people that haven't had a coaching session with us, all of those long-time listeners, never-time callers, if you're like, yeah, I've got all this fucking stuff you guys talk about and you rant and rave about, but what does it actually mean? So you can see here, so at the end of this, if you find this helpful and you get a couple of little nuggets out of this, this is a real-time example. No names, no pack drills. Jack example. I've changed all the details down here, so it's completely fictitious, yet very relevant to a coaching session I had last night. I've literally just updated the details. If you find this helpful, please tag or share this with one of your mates who's in the Defence Force. There you go, Sammy Wynn. It feels like so long ago since, you guys saw your, spreadsheet and plan just like this. Share the love. This is the type and style of basic yet detailed military planning that we go through. Dan, one of your opening stanzas was, we're able to give someone basically $50,000 worth of government and Defence Force grants, and it started with the plan that we put together like this, right? So here's Jack example. He or she's down in Sydney, Navy sailor, on some seagoing allowance, sort of posted to Sydney there, and they're going to be in Sydney for the foreseeable future. Had some money set aside, been saving their ass off, couple of sort of golf trips, whatever else, and they bought their first, so they're renting, single, no kids. There's their goals. There's their property obstacles. As I'll zoom in here for you. In mid last year, they bought their first investment property. It's actually still under construction. Those things in green are future actions. So still under construction. It finishes in about another 6 to 8 weeks' time, and then they're going to get some rent to sort of come in for that property. They got 40 grand sitting in their offset accounts. So they've still been very good from a money habits perspective. They're not quite using their interest-free credit card yet, but that's something they can do at the end of the build. And they've also got about 40 grand in shares sitting over here. Now, come late this, and we did a comparative analysis on realestate.com last night. Come late this year, that property won't be worth $550 anymore. It's got a $478,000 loan. We estimate that property will be about $600,000, which means you can see straight away that there will be approximately $60,000 of available equity that this young person can get access to. Now, noting we're not going to use any of their own funds up here, they can then use that and get a new Commonwealth Bank loan and basically grab that money and go and use it for the deposit and cost for another investment property. And we just go back to basics. Brand new middle of the market property, $475,000-ish, and so brand new land and build, and they'll get a 90% loan down here. But here's the thing. We need to go back and make sure the numbers work from a mortgage broker's perspective. Sure, they've got the right deposit and cost. I'm sure they've still got the right sort of broad conditions of the loan. I'm sure their credit rating and history is still really good because they haven't gone out there and got shitty little bloody consumer debt, but we don't know whether they can borrow the right amount of money. So, but that doesn't mean that we should sort of sit stagnant, because certainly they've now sort of been punched back to the mortgage broker to make that sort of, just like the, what do we call it? The objective of reconnaissance is to confirm or deny information, right? So right now, I need Deb to confirm or deny whether this person can borrow another $475,000, 90% loan plus the balance up here. But from a macro perspective, this is how the timeline looks. Same person, still got access to all their sort of ADF housing entitlements over here. Why? Because they're posted to Sydney for the foreseeable future. They don't want to fucking spend 900 grand in Darlinghurst on a fucking 1-bedroom apartment. So let's just do the rent vesting thing and let's keep buying properties in the right sort of areas. So that first investment property is yet to be finished, like I said, because we're now May 2021. That's going to be done in the June-July period. We know already that the expected capital growth is going to continue to realise there. So now we can plan, research, and submit an expression of interest on the new property, and then sit on our hands for the rest of the year because the land doesn't quite become available anyway. And then they go through the actual build of that property in the first 6 months of next year. But from a pure geometry perspective, this is what the micro timeline looks like. The differences between these two lines is the capital growth in a particular market. And that's what we want to try and maximize. So between now and say at the end of June, we can do a finance review, get them signed up for another success package, share the new research with them, go and identify the new property. They submit the expression of interest and put $1,000 down and then do the contracts. Happy days. That's standard procedure. We then we do nothing all the way through until the November-December period where they go and acquire the property, whereby they get their finance approved and settle on the block of land. Specifically speaking, Sarge, bloody speaking to the mortgage broker and the solicitor. But here's the get out of jail free card. In Queensland only, you are fully protected by a buyer's choice finance clause, whereby if for some reason you can't get your finance approved, you tear up the EOI, you get your $1,000 back, all that goes away and we start again. It's absolute gold. So I guess what I'm showing to you here, and what do we do, ladies and gents, when something seems too good to be true? We're fucking taught to run the other way, right? I'm now letting you know that there is no risk for the initial stages. You get to benefit from the market sooner. There's concurrent activity in play because there's shit happening from a growth perspective because you've locked the price down of the property in today's prices in 99% of the time. Of course, you then go through the build process. That build process doesn't finish until mid next year. The build is complete. The tenants move in. You get your rent return, your tax return, all their building inspections and all that sort of stuff. And then, of course, we do the 12-month builder's warranty inspection 12 months later. But here's the thing. That capital growth then just continues to occur. And we're not looking for 100 grand of capital growth in 1 year. We're looking for sustained and low risk capital growth in an area which has got the 7 ingredients to a healthy property market. Go back and watch our other videos if you don't know what that means. And certainly, Dan, you and I are going to record brand new free content, which is going to be uploaded into our chapter series of sort of, key doctrine, I suppose, tomorrow. So this is like a good little rehearsal for me, mate, to tell you the truth. But you can see there, ladies and gents, straight away from a macro timeline perspective. And sure, this is a very basic example. People have kids, people have weddings, people have different postings, et cetera, et cetera. And we can basically build this for you on the fly. But now this young guy or girl, 25 years old, is going to have, let's call it, $1 million worth of property sitting in 2 separate markets in Southeast Queensland. And he already knows he's only ever going to get to buy 2 properties because the market says from a lending perspective, unless he gets a significant pay rise or his current girlfriend comes and joins the party and they join forces, and of course then their borrowing capacity is going to go through the roof. How fucking good would it make you feel at 25 years old where you've reached out to someone that comes from your background and culture and put a plan together and you've got $1 million worth of property sitting in the market? He can then go and pivot and have kids or bloody do something from a career perspective because he's been smart with his money when he's so young.
Yeah.
So
mate,
that's what I want to share and show you guys anyway.
Absolutely. Can you just jump back onto slide 3, please, buddy? Like there is a few elements there that I just want to cover off on. Like some of you who are skeptics out there might be like, yeah, but Robbie, you're only estimating that the property is going to be worth 600,000. How can you be confident? The answer is because that's how much they're selling for now, in short. Yep. We have the evidence that it's going to be worth $600,000 there. So, mate, one of the key things you did say, though, is this gentleman has extremely good money habits. And one of the things that he's demonstrating by being able to do this is it's not just like, hey, I saved my pennies to get to my deposit the first time around. It's like, yeah, I see that that's the first step that I need to take. But good money habits are a lifetime skill. They're not a today skill. They're something that you build forever. And they're going to change your life the whole way that you go through it. So his ability to still put aside another 40 grand in the offset account, plus have $40,000 worth of shares there, demonstrates that he's been doing something from a long-term perspective and being able to do that. The other thing that I think is an absolute no-brainer from my perspective on this plan is wherever possible, the use of that chunk of equity you've got against that investment property, number one. Because if you saw above, ladies and gents, there was 3 different forms of assets we could have gone for our deposit and costs. There was some shares, there's some cash in our offset account, but the number one place we should go to first is our equity that's against the investment property, wherever the borrowing capacity enables us to be able to have that much money from that perspective. And the reason why is because cash is king. 100% of the time. Cash is king. It'll get you out of Dodge. And it's really, really easy to go and get $50 out of your bank account, but it's very, very difficult to go and get $50 of equity out of a property when you get yourself into a lurch, okay? You need to be able to have a look at that from a holistic perspective. And as you can see there, when you've got that $60,000 sitting there from an equity perspective, when you take that money out, you can have an offset account against it and still park your bloody investment or your offset against it. That's all
come down there.
It's literally money moving sideways, but what you're doing is creating one of the most tax-effective strategies to be able to achieve the end state. Moving money sideways, having every dollar working for you every single day through the night.
And even if for some reason that the valuation on the new property doesn't quite come up to 600, so there's only $40,000 of equity there, you can do a combination.
Yeah.
You can still grab a small amount of this cash and use that to augment the deposit and cost. The name of the game here is being able to use your overall portfolio from a borrowing power perspective and still having plenty of cash set aside. Because even if he uses 20 grand cash, he's got a total of $80,000 in liquid cash. You're still going to have 60 grand left over. Like there's plenty of sort of options there, which sort of just makes it an absolute no-brainer that, you can get this done. And yeah, you can use a combination of equity and or cash. So yeah, when we were going through this with young, almost said his real name, young Jack last night, and 3 other clients last week, and Rob and Corinne that I'm speaking to straight after this, hopefully you're watching. This is exactly what I'm going to be showing you guys about, hey, your property's going up in value. You guys have got good money habits. From a macro perspective, let's put a plan in place where you can start to benefit from the market in the next bloody couple of weeks. And you've got to get out of jail free card because you're fully protected by a finance clause.
Yeah. Now, RT, just while you were doing that, mate, I had a little sneaky check of his old plan, right?
Yes.
What the timeline the micro timeline you just had for his next property there almost matches exactly what he did from a timeline perspective. Took the property off the market in July last year. It's now going to be completed in June-ish, June, July this year. And it's just rinse, repeat 12 months later. So it's one of the really common questions we get is like, hey, I bought one property. How long should I wait for the next one? What's your answer almost 100% of the time? How long should I wait?
So I was just reading some questions, mate. I thought you were making a comment, not a question. Say again, please.
How long? So at this point in time, you can see that young Jack example's plan is 12 months later is putting a EOY down for his next property. In your opinion, and this is a very common question we get, in your opinion, how long should you wait between properties?
In my opinion, it's not about a specific amount of time. It's when the timing is right, when you are able to get access. So if he had gone away on a deployment, if the property for some reason had not gone up in value and he'd gone around on a 6-month deployment and come back with 70 grand in the bank, we're like, no worries, bro. You're just using the 70 grand cash to go fucking use that as your deposit and cost.
Yeah.
So it's not about a specific time frame. We actually budget, if people remember, like if you guys have watched our generic ADF housing entitlements, how to safely build a property portfolio, we actually budget 3 years.
Yeah.
We budget 3 years in between properties. Now, if the market has been very kind to us and the conditions are of such right now, which we could not foresee, this time last year, remember, we were all in fucking lockdown. We were all working from home. None of us, including Axon, were even going to the office. And everyone was talking about a 30, 40% fucking decline in the property market. So that little crystal ball that none of us have, and those people that had, I will say, the balls to take action last year to put a plan in place, noting they're fully protected by a finance clause, they're the ones that are buying a property in 12 months' time, not 3 years. And fucking kudos to them.
Yeah.
So,
it's one of those things from being able to take that approach, they're now just sort of sitting very, very pretty from a long-term perspective. And like I see Julia there, mate, once your first property gets underway, like we are going to be talking about a very similar thing from your individual circumstances, mate. Because Julia, I'm telling your story a little bit here, mate, but you're there. But Julia is one of those people that put an expression of interest down on a property yonky bonks ago, and it still isn't going to be ready for the next few months. And I saw the actual figures for what the developer pricing has changed on those properties over that period of time. And you've done literally fucking nothing except for put a fully refundable holding deposit down, and you've gone up in value by like $20,000 to $30,000, mate.
That's so good. Yeah.
Like, not too bad, right? And you haven't even started the build, and you won't do so for the next few months.
Yeah. CJ, rest assured, brother, we will do some planning soon, very soon after you guys move in. Let's nail that down first. As the classic Chinese proverb goes, he who chases 2 chickens catches none.
Yeah.
Might be rabbits, whatever.
Yeah. As way of a little mini apology for Julia, by the way. Hey, Julia, we'll give you a shameless plug because we're going to come down to Adelaide in, what's that? Next weekend after next.
We're down there next weekend, mate.
Absolutely. So weekend after next. Noah, if you've got the event details there, Axon's going down. We're sort of teaming up with a few of the local communities, defense-related community down there, just to provide some education, some context around both veteran and spousal employment within the veteran community, and also just getting out there and just having a bit of a chinwag, to be perfectly honest, with some of our clients that are down there. So, ladies and gents, if you're in Adelaide over the weekend, I think I go down the 5th and the 6th, it must be, or something like that.
Yep, it is, mate.
Yep, 5th and 6th of June. Ladies and gents, if you're going to be down there, make sure you reach out to us so we can catch up. We'll let you know when Axon's doing a little bit of a get-together for their existing members, and also Noah's just dropped the event there as well that we're sort of going to be attending on with Julia, sort of doing some support for us there as well. There you go.
Next weekend.
There you go, Julia.
Next weekend.
Send your friends over.
Next weekend. And it's not as cold in Adelaide, so I will be going down for this one. Dan, it's going to be the three amigos, you, me, and the wonderful Tamara. So
absolutely, be a ripper little trip that we got down there on down Saturday, back Monday. So loads of fun.
Yeah. So hopefully you guys.
The first national event dedicated to the education of ADO spouses and families about their unique housing entitlements. There you go.
Yeah. If anyone listening tonight knows someone in Adelaide, please go to that event. Tag them in it. It's being done at the Largs Pier Hotel down at Port Adelaide on Sunday morning. So that's what's going on there. So you come down there and just basically have a chat, and we'll be giving you guys like maybe a 25 or 30 minute presentation after a few intros and whatever else about who we are and what we do, just so we can give people that peace of mind that sure, we had some buffhead during the week, Dan, as you know. He's like, oh, how come you guys are charging money for what's in the Pac-Man? And I don't jump on those comments anymore because I'm fucking over it, quite frankly. But other people jump in there are like, well, mate, if it was that easy to just read the Pac-Man, every defense member would be a fucking property mogul champ. But it ain't that fucking easy, and there's lots of little pitfalls and lots of little traps and lots of little good bits of gold nugget that people have no idea about. But it's not just about, as evidence what I just tried to show you guys before, it's not just about knowing how much you get your HPAS for after tax. I'm like, fucking big deal. If you buy a house in Adelaide or Townsville or Darwin or Perth and the markets are shit, you might as well fucking pour that money down the drain because you haven't followed a strategy and used it at a smart, right time and right place. So that's what we're actually going to do, Julie, for your wonderful group down there, as far as the veteran spouses go. It's just, and I know I'm a bit rah-rah because holding a live audience like I'm doing now where we can't see you is difficult, I'd ask you to admit. But certainly when you're in like an actual group, a setting, and we can, you got a bit of feedback, some non-verbal communications, etc. We're actually very warm, we're very considerate, we're very informative, but we're very no bullshit as well. I guess most military spouses that have got an Army or an Air Force spouse, in Adelaide there should be pretty much used to that sort of environment. So that's what's going to go on.
Yeah, it'll be a good little event. We'll be covering off on some we're going to have some different content that no one has ever seen before that we're taking down there because as Robbie just alluded to there, like the Adelaide market, for example, hasn't done exceptionally well over the last few years. It's been relatively slow from that perspective. So the information that we speak about isn't necessarily about, hey, don't fucking do anything. It's like acknowledging the fact that this is an emotional connection that you're doing. If you're buying your property down in Adelaide, it's not necessarily a wealth creation decision. It's a lifestyle choice.
That's right.
And that's cool if that's what you want to do, but absolutely own that and understand the implications of that and being able to demonstrate you're having the 2020 conversation in the here and now. That's the idea of what we're going to be doing down there as well.
Yeah. Just quickly, Debbie, you can be late anytime you want. You are the superstar of the year. The huge amount of work. Dan, I reckon if we said we had Deb working on 20 critical files during the month of May, we're probably underdoing it. The fact that you're, let's call it 53 minutes late to a meeting that you're not even routinely invited to is completely fine. I can already see in my emails there that you've been sending out some really important messages and getting shit done for all of your amazing clients that you love almost as much as us.
Mate, and I mean, the big ticket item is, Deb, I got emails from you after midnight on Tuesday morning. So when you're pulling that shit, mate, don't worry about it. It's okay.
100%. Ladies and gents, with sort of 29, 30 people still listening in, I'd love your feedback just quickly with sort of 5 minutes to go. For those that haven't seen that very basic little military style planning and quick little insight into what we do in the coaching session, I'd love to know your feedback on sort of what that looked like. And really, I mean, my question to you is if you're nowhere near ready to get started and buy a property, that's not the point. Putting a plan in place, giving yourself a level of clarity and just having some strategy and gateposts and accountability buddies to help you get there, there's almost no excuse for every defense member not to have one of those plans in place by someone that can get it sorted for them. So I'd really, really love to know what your feedback is on that, please. And certainly, as you can see there, Jai Simmons, good to hear from you, Jai. She's the best. I feel like I always annoy her with my questions. Mate,
I was about to go.
We annoy her with our questions every day too, brother. Don't worry about it. She's the master as far as that goes. What else we got, mate? We got 5 minutes up our sleeve. Let's give everyone as much back. What have you been up to in the last? Like, I know what you did today. Obviously, out there. Now that lady that you went and saw today, she's undertaking something that not many people have ever tried, let alone succeeded in.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And one of the things that I'm absolutely stoked to be able to sort of report is there's a few more members of our Axon in like family from a workplace perspective that are also undertaking this little challenge. So some of those people deserve a little bit of a shout out. There you go. Christina started planning 14 months ago, and here we are, mate. You know exactly where you're at these days.
Yeah.
It's a long-term game for us. Yeah, getting started on the old 75 hard, mate, which is an extremely difficult endeavor when you hang around the likes of you and I, who are no longer on it. But are always like the devil on your shoulder going like, would you like a chocolate? Would you like a glass of champagne? Would you like these chips at lunchtime?
Alicia Thomas, hello from the I almost said dessert then, from the desert. Hope you're doing well, buddy. Always thinking of you as well. But congrats to everyone who's now started 75 hard, and certainly that wonderful, Axon member that you went out and saw today. What's she on, like day 53 or day 55 or something?
56.
Amazing.
It doesn't even feel it anymore. It's now, as she put it, it's now a lifestyle for her. It's no longer something that she needs to think about. So yeah, Dan purposely, we came out there as a lovely little gift bag there for her as well, and we're about to walk out the door. I'm like, no. We've got to open up that little gift pack. Thank you very much. And she's got the champagne out, and she's got the chockies out, and she's got this out, and she's like, I can't drink that. I can't eat that. I can't do this. I can't do that. Thanks, guys. I'll enjoy this in about 20 odd days' time. Thank you very much.
Hey, we shouldn't tell CJ and Sammy. We might have something for them.
Nah, you don't have anything for CJ and Sammy, surely.
Well, you know what, CJ? If I could give coaching sessions as gifts to people, I would. Brother, we're coming up to the end of the current financial year, and we've been doing a lot of inward reflection on how we can provide more value to our members, how we can, allow you guys to have the gift of a coaching session to do exactly as you're asking. Stand by, brother. We're on the same page as far as it goes. So I guess, if you're telling us, someone who is 90% of the way through the first part of your Axon build and your Axon journey, if that's what you're longing for, it's in our minds and hearts as well, mate. So yes, we're on the same page.
There's way more shit that's coming for Axon members than just that.
I agree, but as he's just placed it there, that's really
absolutely
cool. Huey Allen, now the podcast, Deb. Kel and I only met you at the Brizzy meetup, but you're an absolute awesome person. Yes, indeed, she is.
Debbie is always amazing on those Facebook Lives and the podcast and everything like that. But without failure, every single time she thinks about doing them or turns up, she's like, oh, I've got butterflies. I'm a little bit nervous about this one. And she gets on there and absolutely kills it. She's a natural at doing all of that stuff as well, Huey, as you put forward there, mate. You're absolutely on the money. I sat there beside Deb while she was doing it, and I was like, I don't know why you're ever nervous about this stuff, mate. All of the stories you have and your story that you have from a personal perspective and how you deliver your responses, mate, is just bang on the money. So just keep being you, Deb, and you're going to be amazing.
Now, the great test is going to be, Dan, as you and I well know, and I don't think this is something you're very good at, because by your own admission, I don't think you've listened to many of the podcast episodes. Deb needs to listen to her own podcast episode.
Yeah.
Jai Simmons, just quickly, late question. What's tax time like when you have an investment property? So did you know, my man, let me just check my stuff. I spoke to the amazing Jace Cosgrove recently, and we have planned for him to come and do a session with you guys soon. Let me tell you when that's going to be. Stand by. Give me 1 sec on.
Shortly. I'm assuming before the end of financial year, right?
Jace is going to come and join us. When is that? I believe it's going to be the week before the end of the financial year, the 23rd of June, mate. Wednesday, the 23rd of June is when Jace is going to come and join us and talk about all things tax, all things financial planning, but most importantly, what does it mean to you as a defense member to get the most from your workplace deductions and also your investment property deductions. Do not meet this one. Jai will certainly, between ourselves and Noah and Daniel and the rest of the crew, that's Daniel, the videographer, we'll put an awesome little sort of package together to make sure that everyone knows about the 23rd of June, 1 week before the end of the financial year, mate. So hopefully that's
good news. You know what, Jace? I know you're listening at home, mate, because you wouldn't dare miss one of these things, and someone can tag Jace if they like. But Jace, you're going to take my seat at the Facebook Live for that one, because I reckon I might be driving up north to go fishing for a week about that point in time.
Good. You deserve it, mate. That's excellent.
That's what we're going to do. It is 7:30, ladies and gentlemen. We've been going for 60 minutes. I'll see you all next time.
Thanks, Dan. Thanks to everyone. I fucking love that. But considering it was only just you and I on here, mate, the time flew by real fast. Thank you, Noah. See you guys soon.